My name is Elena. At 60, Elena Marie Evans. Though back then, 25 years ago, I was just Elena Marie Carter, a girl of 22 with dreams too big for the narrow world my family had drawn around me. I grew up in a house where silence was a virtue, and secrets were currency. My father, God rest his soul, was a deacon at the church, his voice booming from the pulpit on Sundays while his eyes scanned the pews for any whisper of scandal. My mother, well, she was the keeper of appearances, her smile painted on like the roses she tended in the front yard. "Reputation is everything, Elena," she'd say, pressing her lips thin as a blade. "Lose it, and you lose yourself." I was their only child, their porcelain doll, straight A's, piano lessons, Sunday dresses starched so stiff they could stand on their own. But dolls crack, don't they? And I cracked the day I fell in love with Thomas Whitaker. Thomas wasn't from our circle. He was a mechanic, grease under his nails and a laugh that rumbled like summer thunder. He worked at the garage on Maple Street, the one with the flickering neon sign that buzzed like a trapped bee. I'd sneak out after my shifts at the library, trading my cardigans for his leather jacket, the scent of oil and freedom clinging to my skin. We'd drive out to the lake, windows down, radio low, his hand on my knee like a promise. "You're not like them, Elena," he'd say, eyes soft. "You've got fire in you." Fire. That's what got me in trouble. It was late August when I missed my cycle, then again in September. The drugstore test trembled in my hands, 2 pink lines screaming what my heart already knew. I was pregnant, 22, unmarried, and carrying the child of a man my parents would call trash. I told Thomas first, under the willow by the water, my voice shaking like the leaves above us. He knelt, pressed his forehead to my belly, and whispered, "We'll make it work, Lena. I swear it." But promises are fragile things. I told my mother on a Tuesday, the kitchen smelling of lemon polish and dread. Her face went white as the tablecloth. "You will fix this," she said, voice flat as a grave. "Dr. Harlan owes your father a favor. It'll be quick. No one will know. Fix this." Like I was a broken vase to be glued back, invisible seams and all. I begged. I screamed. I locked myself in my room until my father's fist splintered the wood. "You will not shame this family," he roared, Bible in one hand, my arm in the other. They dragged me to that clinic, a gray building with curtains the color of old teeth. I remember the paper gown crinkling, the cold stirrups, the nurse's eyes that wouldn't meet mine. "It's for the best, dear," she murmured, but her voice cracked like she didn't believe it either. I didn't go through with it. That night, I packed a single bag, my library card, Thomas's jacket, the silver bracelet I'd bought on a whim at the county fair, engraved with swirling letters I hadn't decided on yet. I left a note on my pillow. "I'm sorry. I can't kill my baby." Then I ran. Thomas was waiting at the bus station, eyes wild. "We'll go north," he said. "Start over." But fate, that cruel jester, had other plans. 2 days later, his boss called. His mother had a stroke. He had to go home. "Just for a week," he promised, kissing my tears. "I'll send for you." He never did. The money ran out fast. I slept in motels with flickering TVs, then in a women's shelter where the walls wept with other people's despair. My belly grew, round and defiant, on a rainy November night in a hospital that smelled of bleach and regret. I gave birth to her, my Grace. She was tiny, perfect, with a cry like a bird learning to sing. Her eyes, storm gray, just like mine, blinked up at me as if she already knew my secrets. The nurse wrapped her in a blanket, the color of faded lilacs. "What will you name her?" she asked. "Grace," I whispered. "Grace Elena." I had nothing to give her. No home, no future, no ring on my finger. Just that bracelet. I'd engraved it the week before. G.E. Grace Elena. a piece of me she could keep when I couldn't. I fastened it around her wrist, the silver catching the dim light like a star. "You'll be braver than me," I told her, though she was too small to understand. "You'll be free." The orphanage was a brick building with ivy choking the windows, St. Mary's Home for Children. I carried her up the steps, my arms aching to hold on. A nun took her from me, her habit rustling like dry leaves. "Are you sure, dear?" she asked, eyes kind but tired. I nodded, throat raw. "Just tell her I loved her, every day." I left before I could change my mind. 6 months later, my parents found me. I was waitressing at a diner, apron stained with coffee and grief. My father didn't yell this time. He just said, "Come home, Elena, it's done." They'd told everyone I'd been at a Christian retreat. Finding myself. Thomas? They said he'd skipped town, a deadbeat. I never knew if it was true. Then came Richard. Richard Evans was 15 years older, a widower with a hardware store and a house with green shutters. My father's golf buddy. "He'll take care of you," Mother said, arranging it like a business deal. The wedding was small, the dress borrowed, my smile borrowed too. Daniel came 2 years later, a squalling bundle with Richard's nose in my eyes. I poured every ounce of love I had into him, hoping it might fill the hole Grace had left. For 25 years, I was the perfect wife, the perfect mother. I baked cookies for PTA meetings, hemmed Daniel's costumes, kissed Richard goodnight even when his snores rattled the walls. But every November, on Grace's birthday, I'd lock myself in the bathroom and cry until my ribs ached. The bracelet? I kept it in a music box, hidden beneath scarves. Some nights, I'd take it out, trace the letters, and wonder if she was happy, if she hated me, if she was even alive. Life settled into a rhythm. The house smelled of pot roast on Sundays, Daniel's laughter echoing down the halls. Richard golfed, I gardened. We attended church, where I sang hymns with a voice that never quite reached the rafters. On the outside, we were the Evans family, solid, respectable, whole. But secrets, they have a way of clawing their way back. It started with a phone call. Daniel, 27 and glowing, his voice bubbling over the line. "Mom, I'm bringing someone home. Her name's Anna. I think she's the one." I smiled into the receiver, told him to bring her for dinner. Hung up and pressed a hand to my chest, where my heart stuttered, like it knew something I didn't. That was the day the past began to bleed into the present. The kitchen smelled of rosemary and garlic that evening, the way it always did when I wanted to feel like everything was still under control. I'd been up since 5, rolling out pie crust with hands that wouldn't stop trembling, the radio humming old hymns to drown out the thudding in my chest. Daniel was coming home. My Daniel, with his easy laugh and the way he still called me Mommy when he thought no one was listening. 27 years old, a junior architect with a corner office and a smile that could melt ice. He was bringing her, Anna, the girl who'd stolen his heart in 6 months flat. Richard was in the den, polishing his golf trophies like they were relics. "Stop fussing, Elena," he called through the doorway, voice gruff but fond. "The boy's in love. Let him be happy." Happy. The word sat heavy on my tongue, like a stone I couldn't swallow. I set the table with the good china, the one with tiny violets along the rim. Candles flickered, casting shadows that danced across the walls like memories trying to escape. Daniel arrived first, bursting through the door with the energy of a summer storm. "Mom!" He swept me into a hug, lifting me off my feet the way he did when he was 16 and towering over me. His cologne was new, cedar and something citrusy, grown up. "Where's Dad?" "Den," I said, smoothing his collar. "Go say hi. She's parking the car." She. Anna. I busied myself with the salad, tearing lettuce with more force than necessary. The front door creaked again, softer this time. Footsteps. Hesitant. Then a voice, gentle as morning rain. "Mrs. Evans, I'm Anna." I turned, and the world tilted. She stood in the doorway, backlit by the porch light, a vision in a simple blue dress that skimmed her knees, dark hair in loose waves, eyes the color of storm clouds before thunder. And that smile, sweet, a little shy, dimples carving crescents in her cheeks. My fork clattered to the counter. I didn't feel it fall. "Anna," I managed, voice cracking like thin ice. "Come in, dear." She stepped forward, clutching a small bouquet of daisies. "These are for you. Daniel said you love flowers." Daniel beamed, arms sliding around her waist. "Doesn't she look amazing, Mom?" Amazing. The word echoed, hollow. I took the flowers, my fingers brushing hers. Warm. Alive. The daisies trembled in my grip. Dinner was a blur. Richard asked about her job. She was a kindergarten teacher, voice soft as she described finger paints and story time. Daniel hung on her every word, refilling her water glass before she asked. I nodded in all the right places, smiled until my cheeks ached, but my eyes kept drifting to the details. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear, revealing a tiny birthmark shaped like a crescent moon. The way she buttered her roll, tearing it into precise halves. The way she laughed, head tilted just so, the sound like wind chimes in July. Grace laughed like that. I remembered. A lifetime ago, in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and hope, she'd giggled at the nurse's funny face. The same tilt, the same chime. "Mom!" Daniel's voice snapped me back. "You okay? You're staring." I blinked, heat flooding my face. "Sorry, sweetheart. Just thinking how grown you are. Both of you." Anna smiled, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "Daniel says you're the best cook in the county. This chicken, it's incredible." Her touch burned. I pulled away too quickly, pretending to check the oven. Richard raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Later, as they cleared plates, I escaped to the porch. The night air was cool, crickets singing in the hydrangeas. I pressed my back to the railing, heart hammering so hard I thought it might crack a rib. It couldn't be. 25 years. "Orphaned," she'd said. "No family, just a string of foster homes after the couple who adopted her died in a fire when she was 6. The dates lined up. The eyes, the birthmark, the bracelet. Oh, God, had she kept it?" "Mom?" Anna's voice soft behind me. She held out a dish towel. "You forgot this." I took it, fingers numb. "Thank you, dear." She lingered, moonlight silvering her profile. "I know this is fast. Daniel and me. But I love him. I want you to know I'll never take him from you." "Take him." The irony twisted like a knife. "You're very kind," I whispered. She smiled again, that heartbreaking smile, and went inside. I stayed on the porch until the stars blurred, the dish towel clutched to my chest like a lifeline. That night, I couldn't sleep. Richard snored beside me, oblivious. I slipped from bed, padded to the music box in the dresser. The bracelet glinted in the moonlight, GE mocking me. I pressed it to my lips, tasting metal and regret. The next weeks were torture. Anna came often, helping with wedding plans, her laughter filling rooms that had forgotten joy. I watched her constantly, cataloging every gesture. The way she stirred soup clockwise, just like I taught myself after Grace was gone. The way she hummed, "You Are My Sunshine," while folding laundry. The way she bit her lip when concentrating, a habit I'd seen in the mirror 1,000 times. I tried to be normal, I really did. I oohed over dress samples, tasted cake flavors, nodded when Daniel gushed about honeymoon plans. But every smile felt like glass, sharp and ready to shatter. One afternoon, Anna found me in the garden, kneeling among the roses. "Mrs. Evans? Elena?" She crouched beside me, gloves smudged with dirt. "Can I help?" I stared at her hands, small, capable, the faint scar on her thumb from a childhood accident she'd mentioned once. Grace had a scar there, too, from falling off a swing at the orphanage playground. I'd kissed it better in my dreams. "You remind me of someone," I said before I could stop myself. She tilted her head. "Who?" My aunt," I lied. "She had your eyes." Anna laughed, brushing soil from her knees. "That's sweet. Daniel says I have old soul eyes." Old soul, if only she knew. That night, I cornered Richard in the garage. "Something's wrong," I hissed, voice low. "Anna, she looks exactly like—" "Like who?" He wiped his hands on a rag, frowning. "Elena, you've been jumpy for weeks. Is it the wedding? Cold feet for Daniel?" "No, it's her. The birthmark, the laugh, everything. Richard, what if she's—" He sighed, heavy. "What if she's what? Your long-lost cousin? You're seeing ghosts, woman. Let the kids be happy." Ghosts. Yes, that's what she was. My ghost, flesh and blood and smiling at my dinner table. I started avoiding her. Polite excuses, sudden headaches, errands that took too long. Daniel noticed. "Mom, what's going on? Anna thinks you hate her." "I don't hate her," I snapped, then softened. "I'm just tired." Tired. A lie as flimsy as tissue. The truth was, I was unraveling. Every night, I dreamed of a little girl with storm-gray eyes, reaching for me through bars of a crib. "Mama," she'd cry, and I'd wake gasping, the bracelet cutting into my palm. I had to know. I couldn't live in this limbo, this half-life of maybe. So I went back. After 25 years, I drove to St. Mary's. The bricks now faded, ivy thicker. Sister Agnes was gone, replaced by a younger nun with kind eyes and a clipboard. "Adoption records are sealed," she said gently. "But if you're family—" "I'm the mother," I whispered. The words tasted like ash and salvation. She hesitated, then led me to a back room. Dust motes danced in the light as she pulled a file. Grace Elena Carter, born November 14th. Mother, Elena Marie Carter, relinquished November 16th. A photograph paperclipped to the corner, faded but unmistakable, a toddler with my eyes, my mouth, clutching a silver bracelet. I traced her face with a trembling finger. She was adopted? Yes, the Millers. Lovely couple. Tragic, though. House fire when she was 6. She survived, went into foster care. No further contact. My knees buckled. The nun caught me, murmuring prayers. I didn't hear them. All I heard was my own heartbeat, roaring like the sea. Anna was Grace, my daughter, my flesh, my blood, my sin, and she was going to marry my son. The photograph from the orphanage file was still burning a hole in my purse when I pulled into the driveway that afternoon. My hands shook so badly I could barely turn off the engine. The house looked the same. Green shutters, roses blooming along the walk. But everything inside me had shifted, like the ground had opened and swallowed the woman I thought I was. I sat in the car for a long time, staring at the front door, the silver bracelet clenched in my fist until the edges bit into my skin. I couldn't go in. Not yet. I drove to the lake instead, the same one Thomas and I used to sneak away to, parked under the willow that had grown thick and heavy with years. The water was glassy, reflecting clouds like bruises. I took out the photo. Grace at 3 years old, pigtails askew, clutching that bracelet like it was the only solid thing in her world. I pressed it to my lips, tasting salt and dust and 25 years of grief. She's alive. She's here. She's going to marry Daniel. The thought looped, vicious and unrelenting. I screamed into the steering wheel until my throat was raw, until the horn blared and a jogger on the path gave me a startled look. Then I just sat there, rocking, the way I used to rock Daniel when he had nightmares. Only this nightmare was mine, and there was no waking up. When I finally went home, the house was quiet. Richard was at the store, Daniel and Anna were at a cake tasting. I went straight to the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes were wild, red-rimmed, the eyes of a stranger. "What have you done?" I whispered to my reflection. "What are you going to do?" I didn't have an answer. They came home an hour later, laughing, Daniel's arm slung around Anna's shoulders. She was holding a small white box tied with ribbon. "Mom, you have to try the lemon raspberry. It's insane." She opened the box, offered me a forkful. The frosting was too sweet, cloying. I swallowed it like medicine. Anna tilted her head, studying me. "Are you okay, Elena? You look pale." "I'm fine," I lied, my voice thin. "Just a headache." Daniel frowned. "You've been getting a lot of those lately." I forced a smile, but my eyes kept drifting to Anna, to the way she stood, weight on one hip, the way she tucked that same strand of hair behind her ear. The birthmark peeked out, a tiny crescent moon. I wanted to reach out, trace it with my finger, whisper I kissed that once, when you were burning with fever, and I thought I'd lose you before I even had you. Instead, I excused myself. I need to lie down. In the bedroom, I pulled the curtains tight and curled on the bed, the photograph beside me. I must have fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew, Daniel was shaking me awake. "Mom, dinner. Anna made lasagna, your favorite." I sat up, disoriented. The room was dark except for the hallway light spilling in. Anna stood behind Daniel, holding a tray. I brought it up. "In case you're still not feeling well." Her kindness was a blade. I took the tray with trembling hands. "Thank you, sweetheart." She lingered after Daniel left. "Elena, I know I'm new here, and I know mothers worry, but I love Daniel. I'd never hurt him. Or you." The lasagna steamed between us, untouched. I wanted to tell her everything. How I'd sung her lullabies in a hospital room that smelled of bleach. How I'd counted her toes 10 times to make sure they were all there. How I'd left her with a nun and a promise I never kept. Instead, I said, "You're a good girl, Anna. Daniel's lucky." She smiled, that dimpled smile, and left. I stared at the lasagna until it went cold. The days blurred after that. I moved through the house like a ghost, smiling when expected, nodding at wedding plans, but inside I was screaming. Every time Anna laughed, I heard Grace's baby giggle. Every time she touched Daniel's arm, I saw my children, touching in ways no siblings ever should. I started seeing her everywhere, in the curve of the banister, in the way the light hit the kitchen table at 4 p.m. She was in my dreams too, older now, wearing a wedding dress, veil catching fire as she reached for me across a church aisle. I tried to act normal. I really did. I helped pick centerpieces, white roses and baby's breath. I tasted champagne with Richard, who kept saying, "Our boy's all grown up." I even let Anna borrow my mother's pearl earrings for the rehearsal dinner. But every kindness felt like betrayal. Every smile was a lie. One evening, I found her in the garden, kneeling by the hydrangeas. She was humming, "You Are My Sunshine," plucking dead blooms with careful fingers. The sun was setting, painting her hair gold. I stood in the doorway, watching, my heart splitting open. "Anna," I called, voice cracking. She turned, startled. "Elena, I didn't see you there." I stepped outside, the grass cool under my bare feet. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." She wiped her hands on her jeans, stood. "That song. Where did you learn it?" She blinked. "You Are My Sunshine? I don't know. Foster mom, maybe. Or the orphanage. I've known it forever." She smiled shyly. "It's Daniel's favorite now. I sing it when he's stressed." I closed my eyes. I'd sung it to Grace every night in that hospital, my voice hoarse from crying. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." "Elena?" Her hand touched my arm. "Are you sure you're okay?" I opened my eyes, looked into hers, storm gray. Just like mine, just like Grace's. I'm fine, I whispered. Just old memories. She squeezed my arm, then went inside. I stayed in the garden until the stars came out, the bracelet cutting into my palm again. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until Richard was asleep, then crept downstairs. The house was dark, silent except for the tick of the grandfather clock. I went to the living room, where Anna's purse sat on the couch. She'd left it after dinner. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside, lip balm, a kindergarten class photo, a small notebook, and there, in a side pocket, a silver chain. Not a bracelet, a necklace, but the clasp. I knew that clasp. I'd fastened it around a tiny wrist 25 years ago. I took it out. The engraving was worn but legible. GE. My knees gave out. I sank to the carpet, the necklace clutched to my chest, silent sobs shaking me until I thought I'd break apart. It was hers. She'd kept it. All these years. Footsteps on the stairs. I shoved the necklace back, closed the purse, and fled to the kitchen just as Anna appeared, rubbing her eyes. "Elena? What are you doing up?" "Couldn't sleep?" I managed. "Want tea?" She nodded, yawning. We sat at the table, 2 cups steaming between us. She didn't notice her purse was slightly askew. She didn't notice my hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Daniel says you used to sing to him," she said softly. "When he was little. You are my sunshine." I stared into my tea. "Yes, I love that song," she murmured. "It makes me feel safe, like someone was watching over me, even when I was alone." I looked up. Her eyes were on me, soft, searching. For a moment, I almost told her. The words were there, clawing up my throat. I was watching. I never stopped. "You're my daughter." But Daniel's footsteps thundered down the stairs. "There you are. Mom, you're going to give Dad a heart attack, wandering around at 2 a.m. He kissed Anna's temple, pulled her up. "Come back to bed, babe." She smiled at me over her shoulder. "Night, Elena." "Night," I whispered. When they were gone, I went to the window, pressed my forehead to the cool glass. The moon hung low, silvering the garden. Somewhere out there, my daughter was sleeping under my roof, engaged to her brother, wearing the bracelet I'd given her when I abandoned her. I didn't sleep again that night, or the next, or the next. The wedding was 3 weeks away. The days after I found the necklace turned into a slow, suffocating haze. I moved through the house like a woman underwater, every sound muffled, every breath labored. The wedding invitations had gone out, cream cardstock with gold foil, Daniel's name beside Anna's in elegant script. They sat in a neat stack on the hall table, mocking me. I couldn't look at them without feeling the walls close in. Richard noticed first. He came home from the store one afternoon and found me in the laundry room, staring at a single sock as if it held the secrets of the universe. "Elena," he said, voice sharp with worry. "You've been folding that same sock for 10 minutes. I blinked, looked down. The sock was inside out, twisted. "I'm fine," I lied, and folded it again. He didn't believe me. How could he? I'd stopped cooking proper meals. Sandwiches for dinner, cereal for breakfast. The garden went untended. The roses drooped, petals browning at the edges. I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back, hollow cheeks, eyes ringed with purple, hair limp and unwashed. I looked like I was disappearing, but inside, I was burning. Anna was everywhere. She'd taken to coming over after school. Her kindergarten class dismissed at 3. She'd kick off her shoes by the door, pad into the kitchen in sock feet, and start chopping vegetables for whatever Daniel had planned for dinner. "Let me help," she'd say, smiling that smile, and I'd nod, mute, watching her hands move with the same precision I remembered from a tiny girl in a hospital crib. She made meatloaf the way I used to. Onion soup mix, a splash of milk, breadcrumbs measured by feel. I stood in the doorway one evening, watching her pat the mixture into the pan, her tongue peeking out between her teeth in concentration. Grace did that. When she was learning to color inside the lines, her little tongue would stick out just so. "Smells good," I said, voice hoarse. She turned, startled, then beamed. "It's your recipe. Daniel found it in your old cookbook, said it was his favorite growing up. Daniel, my son, my sweet, oblivious boy." He came in behind her, kissed the top of her head. "Mom's meatloaf is legendary. You're gonna love it, babe." I smiled, but it felt like my face was cracking. Legendary. If only they knew the recipe came from a women's shelter cookbook, one I'd memorized while pregnant and alone, dreaming of a day I'd cook for my daughter. That night, I couldn't eat. I pushed the meatloaf around my plate, the gravy congealing. Richard frowned across the table. "Elena, you need to see a doctor. This isn't normal." "I'm just tired," I said. Daniel reached over, squeezed my hand. "Mom, we're worried. Anna, too. She thinks you don't like her." Anna's eyes met mine, wide and earnest. "I know I'm not family yet, but I want to be. I want us to be close." Close. The word was a knife. I excused myself, fled to the bathroom, and vomited until my stomach ached. The obsession grew teeth. I started following her. Not obviously. I wasn't crazy, not yet, but in small ways. I'd linger in the hallway when she and Daniel studied wedding venues on his laptop, memorizing the way she bookmarked pages, the way she leaned into him when he pointed out a vineyard. I'd stand outside the guest room door when she stayed over, listening to their muffled laughter, the creak of the mattress as they shifted closer. I'd wait until she fell asleep, then creep in and study her face in the moonlight, tracing the curve of her cheek with my eyes, searching for the baby I'd lost. One afternoon, I found her in Daniel's old room, sorting through childhood photos for the rehearsal slideshow. She sat cross-legged on the carpet, surrounded by albums, her hair tied back with one of Daniel's high school scrunchies. "Look at this," she laughed, holding up a picture of Daniel at 6, gap-toothed and covered in mud. "He was such a menace." I knelt beside her, my knees cracking. "He was," I said softly, "always into something." She flipped the page. A photo of me, younger, holding newborn Daniel. My smile was tired, but real. Anna touched the picture gently. "You look so happy here." "I was," I whispered. Then, before I could stop myself, Do you have any baby pictures of yourself?" Her smile faltered. "No. The fire, remember? Everything burned. The Millers had a few, but..." She shrugged, eyes distant. "I was 6. I don't remember much." I wanted to tell her I remembered enough for both of us. Instead, I said, "I'm sorry." She closed the album. "It's okay. Daniel's my family now. And you. If you'll let me." I fled again. The nights were the worst. I'd lie awake beside Richard, his snores a steady rhythm, while my mind raced. I'd replay every moment with Anna, every similarity, every coincidence. The birthmark, the song, the meatloaf, the way she said, "Bless you," when someone sneezed, the same lilt I'd used with Grace in my dreams. I started writing it down in a notebook hidden under the mattress, lists of proof, like a madwoman building a case. Richard found it one morning. I'd fallen asleep with it open, the pen still in my hand. He read it in silence, his face growing harder with every page. When he looked up, his eyes were cold. "What is this, Elena?" It's nothing," I stammered, reaching for it. He held it out of reach. "You think Anna is your daughter? From before we met?" I nodded, tears spilling. "She has the bracelet, Richard. The birthmark. Everything." He stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. "You're grieving a ghost. That girl is an orphan. Daniel loves her. Let it go." "Let it go?" My voice cracked. "She's going to marry our son." "She's not your daughter," he said firmly. You're seeing what you want to see because you never got over giving that baby up. It's eating you alive." He was wrong. I knew he was wrong. But his words planted doubt, a tiny seed that sprouted in the dark. I stopped writing, started hiding. I'd wait until Anna left her purse unattended, then rifle through it for clues. A library card with her full name, Anna Grace Miller. Grace. My heart stuttered every time. I found a locket once, engraved with a tiny flower. No picture inside. I held it to my chest and cried silently in the pantry. Daniel grew frustrated. "Mom, you're acting weird. Anna's scared to come over." "I'm sorry," I'd say over and over. "I'm just overwhelmed." Anna tried harder. She brought me flowers, baked cookies shaped like hearts, left notes on my pillow. "Can't wait to be your daughter-in-law." Each one was a fresh wound. One night, I woke to find her in the kitchen at 3 a.m., drinking milk from the carton. She jumped when she saw me. "Sorry, couldn't sleep." "Me neither," I said. We sat at the table, the silence thick. Finally, she spoke. "Elena, did I do something wrong?" "No," I whispered. "Then why do you look at me like I'm breaking your heart?" I stared at her, tears blurring my vision. For a moment, I almost told her. The words were there, clawing up my throat, but Daniel's door creaked upstairs, and the moment shattered. "I'm just old," I said, "old and tired." She reached across the table, took my hand. "I'm here, whatever you need." Her hand was warm, real. I pulled away, fled to my room, and sobbed into my pillow until dawn. The wedding was 2 weeks away. I was running out of time. I left the house before dawn, the sky still bruised with night. The roads were empty, just me and the hum of the old sedan, the bracelet rattling in the cup holder like a tiny angry bell. I hadn't slept. Not really, only drifted in and out of fevered dreams where Anna wore a wedding dress made of fire and Daniel called her sis, while the church burned around them. I woke gasping. Richard's side of the bed, cold and empty. He'd taken to sleeping in the guest room, muttering about my episodes. I didn't blame him. I was a stranger even to myself. St. Mary's Home for Children looked smaller than I remembered, the bricks softened by time and ivy. The cross above the door was new, polished brass glinting in the early light. I parked across the street, hands clenched on the wheel, staring at the building like it might bite. 25 years, I'd sworn I'd never come back. But here I was, 60 years old and shaking like the girl who'd climbed those steps with a newborn in her arms. I crossed the street, gravel crunching under my shoes. The front door was unlocked. Morning mass, maybe? The foyer smelled of lemon polish and candle wax, the same as before. A young nun at the desk looked up, startled. "Can I help you?" "I need to see the records," I said, voice rough. "Adoption records, from 2000. She hesitated, eyes flicking to the crucifix on the wall. "Those are sealed, ma'am, unless I'm the mother." The words fell out before I could stop them. Grace Elena Carter, born November 14th, 2000. I left her here. Her face softened. "Wait here." She disappeared down a hallway. I stood there, clutching my purse, the bracelet cutting into my palm through the fabric. Minutes stretched like taffy. Finally, she returned with a thick file, yellowed at the edges. "Sister Margaret said you can look in the office, but you can't take anything." The office was small, cluttered with saint statues and wilted poinsettias. I sat at the desk, hands trembling as I opened the file. The first page was my signature, Elena Marie Carter, shaky and tear-stained. Below it, child relinquished voluntarily, no contact requested. I turned the page. Adoption papers, Harold and Dorothy Miller, approved December 2001. A note in red ink, house fire, 2006. Both parents deceased. Child survived. Entered foster system. Then nothing, no updates, no forwarding address. Just a single photograph, paper clip to the back. Grace at 4, pigtails and a gap-toothed grin, clutching the silver bracelet like a treasure. I traced her face with a finger that wouldn't stop shaking. The eyes, the mouth, the tiny scar on her thumb. It was Anna, my Grace. I don't know how long I sat there. The nun came in once, offered tea. I waved her away. When I finally stood, the file was closed, the photograph burning a hole in my mind. I thanked her, voice mechanical, and walked out into the sunlight that felt too bright, too cruel. The drive home was a blur. I stopped once at a gas station and vomited in the bathroom until my ribs ached. The attendant knocked, asked if I was okay. I stared at my reflection, ghost pale, eyes wild, and didn't recognize myself. Richard was in the kitchen when I got home, eating cereal straight from the box. He looked up, frowned. "Where the hell have you been?" "Out," I said, dropping my keys. They clattered like gunshots. He stood. "Elena, this has to stop. You're scaring us." Daniel's beside himself. "Anna thinks you hate her." "I don't hate her," I whispered. "I love her." He threw up his hands. "Then act like it. The wedding's in 10 days. Pull yourself together." 10 days. The words were a death knell. I went upstairs, locked myself in the bedroom, and took out the orphanage photograph. I laid it beside the one from Daniel's baby album, him at 4 months, Anna, Grace, at 4 years. The resemblance was uncanny. Same tilt of the head, same storm gray eyes, same stubborn cowlick at the hairline. I sat on the floor, back against the bed, and cried until my throat was raw. Then I did the only thing I could think of. I called the one person who might understand. Sister Agnes was retired now, living in a small apartment near the church. Her voice on the phone was frail, but warm. "Elena? My goodness, it's been years." "I need to see you," I said. "Please." She agreed. I drove over, the photograph clutched in my lap. Her apartment smelled of tea and lavender. She opened the door in a cardigan, hair white as snow. "Come in, child." I sat on her couch, hands twisting. "Do you remember me?" She nodded slowly. "The girl with the bracelet. You cried so hard, I thought your heart would break." I showed her the photograph. "This is her. Grace, she's engaged to my son." Sister Agnes went very still. Then she took the picture, studied it. "Dear God." "I went to St. Mary's," I said, voice breaking. "The file confirmed it. The Millers died. She went into foster care, and now she's here, in my house, calling me Mom." Sister Agnes closed her eyes. "What will you do?" "I don't know." I laughed, a hollow sound. "If I tell them, I destroy everything. If I don't, I let my children commit sin." She reached for my hand. "You were so young, Elena, so scared. You did what you thought was best." "Best?" I pulled away. "I abandoned her." "You gave her life," she said gently, "and now God has brought her back. Maybe not the way you imagined, but she's here." I left her apartment with no answers, only more questions. The sun was setting, painting the sky blood red. I drove home slowly, the bracelet in my pocket, the photograph on the seat beside me. Daniel and Anna were in the living room when I walked in, heads bent over wedding invitations. They looked up, startled. "Mom," Daniel said, "where have you been?" "Errands," I lied. Anna stood, hesitant. "We saved you some lasagna. It's in the fridge." I looked at her, really looked. The way she worried her lip. The way she stood, weight on one foot. The way she said my name like it mattered. "Thank you," I whispered. She smiled, uncertain. "Are you okay?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to fall at her feet and beg forgiveness. Instead, I nodded. "Just tired." That night, I sat in the dark, the 2 photographs side by side on the kitchen table, Daniel's baby picture, Grace's orphanage photo, my children, my sin, my salvation. I traced their faces with a finger that wouldn't stop trembling. 10 days. I had 10 days to decide whether to save them or destroy us all. The clock ticked louder than my heartbeat. I didn't sleep. The house had become a cage, every room echoing with the ticking of a bomb I alone could hear. I moved through the days like a sleepwalker, smiling when Daniel kissed my cheek, nodding when Richard asked if I'd taken my vitamins, murmuring, "Beautiful," when Anna showed me veil swatches in shades of ivory and blush. But inside, I was splintering, sharp edges cutting deeper with every breath. I stopped eating. Food turned to ash in my mouth. The scale in the bathroom crept downward. 128, 125, 122. My wedding ring spun loose on my finger. Richard noticed, of course. He left bottles of Ensure on the nightstand, chocolate and vanilla, like I was an invalid. "Drink," he'd say, voice gruff with worry. I'd nod, wait until he left, then pour them down the sink. The sweetness made me gag. Sleep was a stranger. I'd lie in the dark, eyes fixed on the ceiling, replaying every moment with Grace. Anna, on an endless loop. Her first smile in the hospital, toothless and gummy. The way she'd gripped my finger with surprising strength. The sound of her cry when the nun took her away. And now, her laugh in my kitchen, her hand on Daniel's knee, her voice calling him love in the same tone I'd once whispered to Thomas under the willow tree. I started seeing omens everywhere. A dead bird on the porch, wings splayed like a warning. The roses blooming blood red overnight, the way the grandfather clock chimed 13 times at midnight, though I knew it was impossible. I'd sit at the kitchen table at 3 a.m., the orphanage photograph and Daniel's baby picture side by side, the silver bracelet between them like a bridge I couldn't cross. One night, I found myself in the attic. I hadn't been up there in years. Dust coated everything, the air thick with the scent of old paper and forgotten summers. I dug through boxes, Daniel's baby clothes, Richard's golf trophies, my wedding dress yellowed with age. At the bottom of a trunk, wrapped in tissue, was the hospital blanket, pale yellow, stained with what might have been blood or milk. I pressed it to my face and sobbed until my ribs ached, the sound muffled by decades of silence. Daniel found me there at dawn, curled on the floor like a child. "Mom?" His voice cracked. He knelt, touched my shoulder. "What are you doing?" I couldn't answer. The blanket was clutched to my chest, the bracelet cutting into my palm. He saw the photographs, the lists I'd started writing again. Similarities, dates, the necklace, the birthmark. His face went white. "Mom, this is insane." I laughed, a broken sound. "Insane? She's your sister, Daniel. My daughter. Our daughter." He recoiled like I'd slapped him. "Stop it. Just stop." He left me there, the attic door slamming behind him. I heard him on the phone downstairs, voice low and urgent. "Richard." Then Anna's softer tones. "Worried." I stayed in the attic until the sun was high, the dust motes dancing like ghosts around me. When I finally came down, they were waiting. Richard in his armchair, face carved from stone. Daniel pacing, hands raking through his hair. Anna on the couch, eyes red-rimmed, clutching a tissue. "Sit," Richard said. I sat. He held up my notebook. "This ends now. You're seeing Dr. Patel tomorrow. You're not well." "I'm not crazy," I whispered. Daniel stopped pacing. "Then explain, without the conspiracy theories." I looked at Anna. She met my eyes, steady despite the tears. I took a breath that felt like broken glass. "I was pregnant before I married your father," I said to Daniel. 25 years ago, I ran away, had the baby, a girl, Grace. I left her at St. Mary's with this." I pulled the bracelet from my pocket, let it dangle. "Anna has one just like it. The birthmark, the song, the dates, everything." Silence. Then Anna's voice, small. "I told you about the fire, the Millers. I don't remember much before that." Richard stood. Enough. Elena, you're grieving a child you never knew, projecting it onto Anna. It's cruel. Cruel? I laughed again, hysterical. Letting them marry is cruel. They're siblings. Daniel's face crumpled. Mom, please. Anna stood, walked to me. She took the bracelet, turned it over. The engraving caught the light. GE. Her fingers trembled. I had this, as a little girl, lost it in the fire, or thought I did. She looked up, eyes wide. But that doesn't mean... It means everything, I said. Richard grabbed my arm. Bed, now. We'll talk when you're rational. He dragged me upstairs. I didn't fight. In the bedroom, he locked the door from the outside, something he hadn't done since Daniel was a toddler. I heard him on the phone again, voice low. A doctor, pills, maybe a hospital. I sat on the bed, the bracelet in my lap, the walls pressed in, the air too thick to breathe. I thought of Grace in the orphanage, reaching through the bars. I thought of Anna in foster homes, clutching a blanket that wasn't hers. I thought of Daniel, my sweet boy, about to marry his sister. I couldn't let it happen. I waited until the house was quiet. Richard's snores rumbled through the wall. I found the spare key in the drawer, the one he thought I didn't know about. I crept downstairs. The living room was dark, moonlight silvering the couch where Anna slept, Daniel's arm around her. They looked so young, so happy. I stood over them, tears streaming. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. I went to the kitchen, took the wedding invitation stack. One by one, I tore them in half, then quarters, then eighths. The sound was soft, like snow falling. I left the pieces in a pile on the table, the bracelet on top like a crown. Then I wrote the note. Daniel, Richard, Anna. I can't watch this happen. She's Grace, my daughter, your sister, your daughter-in-law. I've failed you all. Forgive me. Mom. I left it beside the torn invitations, took my purse, the photographs, the hospital blanket, walked out into the night. The car started on the third try. I drove with no destination, just away. The roads blurred, street lights smearing into watercolor. I ended up at the lake again, the willow tree older now, branches trailing in the water like mourning veils. I sat on the hood, the blanket around my shoulders, and screamed into the darkness until my voice gave out. The stars didn't answer. The water didn't care. My phone buzzed. Daniel, then Richard, then Anna? I turned it off. I stayed until dawn, the sky bleeding from black to gray to pink. A jogger passed, gave me a wide berth. I must have looked mad, hair wild, eyes swollen, wrapped in a baby blanket like a shawl. I drove back as the sun rose. The house was chaos when I walked in. Police cars in the driveway, lights flashing. Daniel ran to me, face streaked with tears. Mom, where were you? Richard behind him, furious. You scared us half to death. Anna stood in the doorway, pale, clutching the bracelet. Our eyes met. She knew. I saw it in the way her hand trembled. The police took my statement. Runaway mother, suicidal ideations. They wanted to take me to the hospital. I refused. Richard signed papers instead. Voluntary commitment, 72 hours. They took me to St. Jude's Behavioral Health. White walls, soft voices, pills that made my tongue thick. Group therapy where I sat silent, staring at the floor. A psychiatrist with kind eyes asked about guilt. I told her about Grace. She nodded, wrote notes. Grief is complex, she said. Daniel visited once. He sat across from me, hands clenched. You're wrong, he said. Anna's not. She can't be. I showed him the photographs, the file I'd photocopied at St. Mary's before leaving, the bracelet. He went pale, left without a word. Anna came the next day, alone. She sat beside my bed, took my hand. If it's true, she whispered, what do we do? I cried then. For the first time in days, I cried with someone else. She held me, her arms strong, her scent, lavender and baby powder, exactly as I remembered from the hospital. The wedding was 8 days away. I had to stop it, whatever the cost. They released me from St. Jude's after 4 days, not 3. The psychiatrist said I was stable enough, but kept me on little white pills that turned the edges of the world soft and gray. Richard picked me up in silence, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. The house smelled of lemon cleaner and tension when we walked in. Daniel's car was gone. Anna's too. A note on the fridge in Richard's blocky handwriting. Gone to the venue. Back late. I went straight to the bathroom, flushed the pills down the toilet, and watched them swirl away like tiny white lies. My reflection stared back, gaunt, eyes sunken, but clearer than they'd been in weeks. I had 8 days. 8 days to save my children from a sin that would haunt them forever. I started with the venue, a vineyard 20 miles out, rolling hills and fairy lights. I drove there the next morning, the bracelet in my pocket like a talisman. The coordinator, a brisk woman named Marla, greeted me with a clipboard and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mrs. Evans, we're so excited for Daniel and Anna. I forced a smile. Actually, there's been a change. The wedding's off. Her pen froze mid-air. Excuse me? My son's making a mistake. I need to cancel everything. She laughed, nervous. That's not how this works. Deposits are non-refundable, and Daniel signed the contract himself. I leaned in, voice low. Check again. I'm the mother. I'm paying. She did. Her face fell. Richard's name was on the check, not Daniel's. She made a call. I waited, heart pounding. 10 minutes later, she hung up, pale. Your husband says to proceed. He'll be here tomorrow to sign the final papers. I left with nothing but a headache and the taste of defeat. Next, the caterer. I feigned a sudden allergy. Shellfish, gluten, the works. They offered alternatives. I cried on the phone, said Daniel had developed a rare autoimmune disorder. They were sympathetic but firm. Contract signed, menu locked. I hung up and screamed into a pillow until my throat bled. The florist was easier. I told them Anna had changed her mind. Wanted succulents, not roses. They argued, but I paid the difference in cash. Small victories. The roses would still come, but later wilted. Daniel came home that night, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. What the hell, Mom? The vineyard called. Said you tried to cancel? I stood in the kitchen, hands buried in dough for bread I wouldn't eat. It's wrong, Daniel. All of it. He threw his keys on the counter. You're sick. You need help. I need you to listen. I pulled out the photographs, the orphanage file, the bracelet. Look at her. Really look. He did. For a long moment, he just stared. Then he shoved them back at me. Coincidence, that's all. Coincidence? My voice rose. The birthmark? The song? The bracelet she wears every day? He flinched. She doesn't wear it anymore. Said it felt heavy. Heavy. The word lodged in my throat like a stone. Anna arrived then, eyes red. She'd been crying. Elena, please, stop this. I looked at her, my daughter, my beautiful broken daughter, and something in me snapped. You feel it too, don't you? The wrongness. She shook her head, but her hands trembled. I love him. Love isn't enough, I whispered. Not when it's this. Daniel took her hand, pulled her close. We're getting married, with or without you. They left the next morning for a pre-wedding getaway. Richard drove them, his face carved from granite. I stood on the porch and watched the car disappear, the dust settling like ash. I had 6 days. I tried everything. I called Anna's foster records office, begged for DNA proof. They stonewalled. Privacy laws. I went to the church, confessed to Father Michael. He listened, eyes kind, then said, Marriage is sacred, Elena, but so is family. Pray for guidance. I prayed. On my knees in the garden, dirt under my nails, tears watering the roses. God didn't answer. I feigned illness, a heart attack complete with chest clutching and dramatic collapse in the kitchen. Richard called 911. The paramedics came, efficient and calm. EKG normal. Blood pressure high, but stable. They wanted to take me in. I refused, signed the AMA form with shaking hands. Richard's face when they left was thunderous. "You're killing yourself," he said. "And us." "Maybe," I whispered. "But I won't let them sin." He slept in the den after that. The house was a battlefield, silence the only weapon. I started leaving notes. In Daniel's shoes. "She's your sister." In Anna's purse. "Ask about the fire." On the bathroom mirror in lipstick, GE. They found them, of course. Daniel tore them up. Anna cried. Richard threatened to change the locks. 4 days. I tried to separate them, invited Anna for girl time, took her to lunch, talked about everything but the truth. She was polite, distant. "Daniel's worried," she said. "We both are." I reached across the table, took her hand. "If you love him, let him go." She pulled away. "You don't get to decide that." I followed them once, to the tailor for Daniel's tux. I waited outside, heart hammering, then slipped in when they were in the fitting room. I told the seamstress Anna had gained weight, needed the dress let out 2 sizes. She frowned, checked the measurements. "Anna, good," she said. I paid her $50 to forget the final fitting. 3 days, I called the guests, one by one. "Daniel's sick." Anna's cold feet. "Family emergency." Some believed me, some didn't. The RSVPs trickled in. Fewer yeses, more maybes. Richard found the call log, exploded. "You're ruining his life." "I'm saving it," I said. He grabbed my arm, hard enough to bruise. "One more stunt, Elena, and you're out. I mean it." I believed him. 2 days. I stopped sleeping entirely. I paced the house at night, a ghost in my own life. I baked cookies at 2 a.m., left them on the counter with notes. "For my children." I rearranged the furniture, moved Anna's dress from the guest room to the attic. I hid Daniel's ring in the flower canister. They came home early from their trip. I heard the car, the slam of doors. Daniel stormed in, face twisted with rage. "Where's my ring?" I stood in the kitchen, flour on my hands, the bracelet around my wrist, like a handcuff. "Safe." He lunged. Richard caught him. Anna stood in the doorway, pale, eyes huge. "Elena, please, this has to stop." I looked at her, my grace, my baby, and the fight went out of me. I sank to the floor, the bracelet cutting into my skin. "I can't," I whispered. "I can't watch you marry him." Daniel knelt, voice breaking. "Then don't come. Stay home, but we're doing this." They left me there, flower dusted and defeated. The house was silent again, the clock ticking down to Judgment Day. 1 day. I sat in the dark, the torn invitations around me like confetti from a funeral. The pills Richard had refilled sat on the counter, tempting. I thought about swallowing them all, ending the noise, but then I thought of Grace's face in the hospital, her tiny hand around my finger. I thought of Anna's smile when she thought no one was watching. I thought of Daniel's laugh, the one that used to fill this house with light. I couldn't end it. Not yet. I had 1 card left to play. Tomorrow, the night before the wedding, I would tell her. Alone, the truth, raw and bleeding. And whatever happened after, God help us all. The house was quiet in a way it hadn't been in weeks, the kind of quiet that presses against your eardrums and makes your pulse loud in your own head. Richard had taken Daniel to the vineyard for the rehearsal dinner. The caterers had come and gone. The fridge was stuffed with trays of cold cuts and tiny quiches no one would eat. I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, the silver bracelet on the scarred wood in front of me, catching the moonlight like a drop of mercury. 1 day, 1 night, 1 last chance. I had written the note on the back of a grocery receipt because my hands shook too hard for anything fancier. Anna, meet me in the garden, 10 p.m. Come alone, please. E. I left it under the wiper blade of her car when she came back from dress shopping. I watched from the upstairs window as she found it, turned it over twice, then tucked it into her pocket without a word. Daniel was inside, laughing at something on his phone. She didn't tell him. At 9:47, the back door creaked. I was already outside, barefoot on the cool grass, the hem of my nightgown damp with dew. The hydrangeas had finally given up. Their petals lay bruised and brown under the bushes. The moon hung low and swollen, the color of old pewter. I heard her footsteps before I saw her, soft on the path, hesitant. Elena? Her voice was small, almost swallowed by the crickets. I stepped into the moonlight. Over here. She came slowly, arms wrapped around herself, even though the night was warm. She wore jeans and one of Daniel's old sweatshirts, the sleeves pushed up. The porch light caught the faint scar on her thumb, the one I'd kissed 1,000 times in dreams. We stood beneath the willow tree that had grown crooked over the years, its branches brushing the ground like weary fingers. I couldn't find my voice. The words I'd rehearsed all day tangled behind my teeth. She spoke first. "You're scaring me." "I know." My throat felt lined with sandpaper. "I'm sorry." She waited. The silence stretched until it snapped. I held out the bracelet. "Take it." She did, fingers brushing mine. The metal was warm from my skin. She turned it over, thumb tracing the worn letters. "GE. I gave this to a baby," I said. "November 16th, 2000. St. Mary's Home for Children. She was 2 days old." I kissed her forehead, fastened this around her wrist, and walked away because I was 22 and terrified, and my parents said it was the only way. Anna's breath hitched. "I named her Grace Elena." I went on, voice cracking. "After my grandmother and, God help me, after myself. I thought if she carried my name, maybe a piece of me would stay with her." She stared at the bracelet like it might bite her. "The Millers adopted her when she was 1, I said. "They died in a fire when she was 6. She went into foster care. No further contact." I swallowed hard. But I never stopped looking. Every November 14th, I lit a candle. Every shooting star, I wished the same wish. Anna's knees buckled. She caught herself on the tree trunk, the bark rough under her palms. "No." "I went back to St. Mary's," I whispered. The file had a picture. Same eyes, same mouth, same birthmark behind the left ear. I reached out, trembling, and brushed the hair from her neck. The crescent moon was there, faint but unmistakable. "I kissed that mark the night you were born. You had a fever. I was so scared." She jerked away, but not far. Tears carved silver tracks down her cheeks. "I didn't want to believe it either," I said. "But the dates, the song, the meatloaf, the way you tilt your head when you laugh, it's all her. It's all you." My voice broke completely. "You're Grace. You're my daughter." The night seemed to hold its breath. Even the crickets went quiet. Anna opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "If this is true?" Her voice was shredded. "Daniel is my son," I finished. "Your brother." She doubled over, a wounded sound escaping her throat. I reached for her, but she stumbled back, shaking her head. "No, no, no, no." I tried to stop it, I said, tears streaming now. Everything. The venue, the flowers, the notes. I thought if I could just delay it. "You should have told me," she cried. "Weeks ago, not the night before I'm supposed to walk down the aisle." "I was afraid," I admitted. "Afraid you'd hate me. Afraid Daniel would never forgive me. Afraid I'd lose you both all over again." She sank to the grass, knees drawn to her chest. The bracelet slipped from her fingers, glinted in the moonlight. I knelt beside her, not touching, just close enough to feel the heat of her grief. I remember a song, she whispered after a long time. A woman singing. You are my sunshine. I thought it was a dream, but it was you. I nodded, unable to speak. She looked up, eyes shattered. What do we do now? I had no answer, only the truth, raw and bleeding between us. Headlights swept the driveway, Richard's SUV. Doors slammed. Daniel's voice, laughing, then calling her name. Anna, babe, you out here? She froze. I saw the moment she decided, saw the love and the horror warring on her face. She picked up the bracelet, closed her fist around it. Anna. Closer now. Footsteps on the path. She stood, wiped her face with the sleeve of Daniel's sweatshirt. I need to think, she said, voice barely audible. Alone. I nodded. She walked past me, toward the light, toward Daniel's open arms. He caught her, kissed her temple, asked what was wrong. She shook her head, buried her face in his chest. I stayed in the shadows, the willow branches brushing my shoulders like a curtain. Richard found me later, sitting on the porch steps, the grass stains on my nightgown dark as blood. Where's Anna? Inside, I lied. She'd slipped away while Daniel was in the shower, left a note on his pillow. Need space. I'm sorry. He stared at me, exhaustion etched in every line of his face. Whatever you said, Elena, fix it. Tomorrow's their day. I looked at the bracelet in my hand, the metal cold now. Some things can't be fixed, I said. Only faced. He went inside without another word. The house swallowed him. I stayed on the steps until the sky paled, the moon fading like a bruise. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. A garbage truck rumbled. The world kept moving. Indifferent. Tomorrow the vineyard would be strung with fairy lights. Tomorrow Daniel would stand at the altar in his tux, smiling at an empty aisle. Tomorrow everything would shatter. I closed my fist around the bracelet and waited for the sun. Dawn broke gray and heavy, the sky the color of wet ash. I hadn't moved from the porch steps. The bracelet had left a perfect circle of dents in my palm, a tiny crown of pain. Inside, the house was too quiet. No clatter of coffee cups, no Daniel humming off-key in the shower, no Anna padding barefoot to the kitchen for orange juice. Just the tick of the grandfather clock counting down to a wedding that would never happen. Richard found me at 7, still in my grass-stained nightgown. His face was haggard, tie askew, eyes bloodshot. She's gone, he said flatly. Left a note, said she needed time. Daniel's losing his mind. I stood, legs numb. Good. He grabbed my arm. Fix this, Elena. Call her. Tell her you're crazy. Tell her anything. I looked at him. Really looked. The man I'd married out of duty, the man who'd given me Daniel, who'd slept beside me for 25 years while I mourned a ghost. I told her the truth, I said. That's all I can do. Oh, he let go like I'd burned him. You've destroyed us. The vineyard was chaos when we arrived. Guests milled in confused clusters, programs fluttering like white flags. The fairy lights were up, twinkling mockingly against the overcast sky. Marla, the coordinator, rushed over, clipboard clutched to her chest. Mrs. Evans, thank God. The bride's missing. The groom's in the back room. Daniel burst through the doors then, tux half-buttoned, hair wild. Mom! His voice cracked on the word. Where is she? I opened my mouth, but Richard cut in. Your mother's been unwell. She said things last night, upset Anna. Daniel's eyes flicked to me, pleading. Tell me it's not true. I pulled the orphanage file from my purse, the photocopies creased and tear-stained. Read it. He took the pages with shaking hands. Guests watched, whispering. I saw Mrs. Henderson from church clutch her pearls. I saw Daniel's best man, Jake, pull out his phone, probably texting the news to the group chat. The truth was a wildfire now. Nothing could contain it. Daniel read, his face drained of color with every line. When he reached the photograph, Grace at 4, clutching the bracelet, his knees buckled, Jake caught him. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." Richard tried to take the file. "It's circumstantial." "Shut up," Daniel roared, the sound raw enough to silence the crowd. He looked at me, eyes shattered. "You knew. All this time." "I suspected," I said. "Then I knew." He laughed, a broken, hysterical sound. "My fiancée is my sister. Jesus Christ." The minister appeared, Bible in hand, face pale. "Perhaps we should move this inside." "There is no wedding," Daniel shouted. He tore the file in half, quarters, eighths. The pieces fluttered to the gravel like snow. "There is no fucking wedding," guests gasped. Someone started crying. Phones came out, recording. I stood frozen as my son unraveled in front of half the town. Richard grabbed Daniel's arm. "Son, calm down. We'll figure this out." Daniel shoved him away. "You knew too? You let this happen?" "I didn't believe her." Richard's voice cracked. "She's been sick." "I'm not sick," I screamed. The sound tore from my throat like a living thing. "I'm the only one who saw it. I saved them." Daniel stared at me, chest heaving. Then he turned and walked away, past the vineyard rows, past the confused guests, until he was just a black speck against the gray sky. Richard went after him. I stayed where I was, the torn photographs at my feet. Marla approached, voice gentle. "Mrs. Evans, we'll need to discuss the cancellation fees." "Send the bill," I said. "Send it to hell." I drove home alone. The house felt cavernous, every corner echoing with absence. Daniel's tux jacket hung on the banister like a ghost. Anna's veil was draped over the couch, ivory lace catching the dust motes. I sat on the floor amid the shredded invitations and cried until my eyes swelled shut. Hours later, Richard came back. Alone. His suit was rumpled, tie gone. "He's at Jake's," he said. "Won't talk to me." I nodded. He looked around the wreckage of our life, then at me. "You kept this from me. 25 years. Another child." "I was ashamed," I whispered. "You should have told me." His voice broke. "I would have helped you find her." "I didn't deserve help." He sank into the armchair, head in his hands. "What now?" "Now we wait," I said, "for whatever comes." Night fell. The phone rang. Friends, family, the caterer, the photographer. I let it go to voicemail. Richard poured whiskey, drank it straight from the bottle. I sat by the window, the bracelet in my lap, watching the street for headlights that never came. At 2:13 a.m., tires crunched on gravel. I stood, heart hammering. Anna stepped out of a rideshare, duffel bag over her shoulder, face swollen from crying. She saw me through the glass and froze. I opened the door. "Come in." She did, dropping the bag in the foyer. We stood in the half-light, two strangers bound by blood and ruin. "I told him," she said, "everything. After I left here. We sat in his car until dawn." I nodded, throat tight. "He hates me," she whispered. "Hates us both." "He hates the truth," I said. "Not you." She laughed, bitter. "I was going to marry my brother. I kissed him. She pressed a hand to her mouth, stifling a sob. I reached for her. This time she let me. She collapsed into my arms, all sharp angles and trembling. I held her the way I hadn't since she was 2 days old, her hair smelling of vineyard dust and grief. "I looked up the records," she said against my shoulder. "Called the state. They're expediting a DNA test. But I know. I feel it." "I know," I said. We sank to the floor together, her head on my knee like a child. I stroked her hair, counting the strands the way I'd counted her toes in the hospital. Morning came. Richard found us there, asleep amid the wreckage. He didn't speak, just draped a blanket over us and left for the hardware store. The world outside kept moving. Mail delivered, sprinklers hissing, dogs barking. Inside, time had stopped. Daniel didn't come home for 3 days. When he did, he looked like a man who'd aged a decade. He stood in the doorway, eyes hollow. "It's true," he said. "The DNA came back, 99.9% match." Anna was in the kitchen, making tea she wouldn't drink. She turned, cup trembling in her hands. "Daniel." "Don't." His voice was razor sharp. "Just don't." He went upstairs. Doors slammed. We didn't see him again for a week. The town talked, of course. Whispers at the grocery store. Stares at church. Mrs. Henderson sent a casserole with a note, "Praying for your family." I threw it in the trash. Richard slept in the den. Anna took the guest room. I stayed in Daniel's old room, surrounded by his childhood, trophies, posters, the faint scent of the boy he used to be. I wore the bracelet like a shackle. One night, Anna slipped into my room. "I can't stay here," she said. "It hurts him too much." "Where will you go?" "Back to my apartment. I'll figure it out." I nodded. "Take whatever you need." She hesitated. "Will you come with me? Just for a day. I don't want to be alone." I went. We drove in silence, her hands clenched on the wheel. Her apartment was small, above the kindergarten, walls painted sunshine yellow. She made coffee. We sat on the couch, knees touching. "I keep thinking about the fire," she said. "The Millers. I remember smoke. A woman's voice screaming my name. I thought it was Dorothy, but maybe—" She looked at me, eyes wide. "Maybe I remember you." I took her hand. "You were 6. Memories blur." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I wish I'd known you." "I wish I'd been brave enough to keep you." We cried then, quiet and thorough, until the coffee went cold. Weeks passed. Daniel moved out. Jake's basement, then a studio downtown. Richard worked late, came home smelling of sawdust and avoidance. Anna and I met for coffee, then lunch, then long walks by the lake. She called me Elena still, but sometimes, when she thought I wasn't listening, she whispered, "Mom," like a prayer. I lost everything: my son's trust, my husband's faith, my place in the town's tidy narrative. But in the ruins, something grew. Tentative, fragile, real. One afternoon, Anna showed me a photograph on her phone. Her kindergarten class, 20 small faces beaming. "I'm good at this," she said. "Teaching. Maybe that's enough." "It's more than enough," I said. She smiled, the first real one in months. "Will you come to the holiday concert? The kids are doing a winter pageant." I went, sat in the back row, heart in my throat as she led 20 tiny voices in "You Are My Sunshine." When she caught my eye, she winked. I cried into my program. Daniel came home for Thanksgiving. He stood in the doorway, thinner, eyes wary. Richard hugged him too hard. Anna set the table with shaking hands. We ate in near silence. Turkey dry, gravy lumpy. After dessert, Daniel pulled me aside. "I'm sorry," he said, "for shutting you out." "I'm sorry," I said, "for everything." He nodded. "It's a lot." "I know." He hugged me then, awkward and fierce. Over his shoulder, I saw Anna watching, tears in her eyes. Richard raised his glass. "To family," he said, voice rough. "Whatever shape it takes." We drank. The glasses clinked like tiny bells of redemption. The DNA results sat in a folder on the mantel, unopened now. We didn't need them anymore. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and forgiving. Time didn't heal us. It just taught us how to carry the weight. The months after the canceled wedding were a slow, painful thawing, like ice cracking on a winter pond. Daniel's studio apartment became his fortress. He'd come home for Sunday dinners, sit at the table with shoulders hunched, picking at his food while Richard pretended everything was normal, and I tried not to stare at the empty chair where Anna used to sit. She'd moved back to her little yellow apartment above the kindergarten, and we met in neutral territory: coffee shops, the lake path, the library where I used to hide from my parents all those years ago. I kept the bracelet in a small velvet box on my nightstand. Some nights I'd take it out, trace the worn letters, and let myself remember the hospital room, the weight of a newborn in my arms, the way her tiny fist had curled around my finger like she already knew I'd fail her. Other nights, I left it closed because the pain was still too sharp, like pressing on a bruise that refused to fade. Spring came early that year. The roses in the garden burst open overnight, blood red and defiant. I was kneeling among them one afternoon, pruning dead canes when the mail truck rumbled up. The driver handed me a single envelope. No return address, just my name in handwriting I didn't recognize. My heart stuttered. I carried it inside, sat at the kitchen table, and opened it with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. Inside was a photograph. Anna, standing in her classroom, sunlight streaming through the window and catching in her hair. She was smiling, really smiling, the kind that reached her eyes and made dimples carve crescents in her cheeks. On the back, in her neat teacher's script, "I'm learning to say a word I never got to say." Mom. I traced the word with my thumb until the ink smudged. Mom. Not Elena. Not Mrs. Evans. Mom. I cried then, the kind of crying that starts in your belly and works its way out, shaking loose years of grief and guilt. Richard found me there, face streaked with dirt and tears, the photograph clutched to my chest. He didn't ask questions, just sat beside me, his hand heavy on my back, and let me sob until I was empty. That night, I called her. "Come over," I said. "Please." She arrived an hour later, cheeks flushed from the spring air, carrying a paper bag that smelled of cinnamon. "I baked," she said shyly. "Snickerdoodles. The kids helped." We sat on the porch, the same steps where I'd waited for her the night before the wedding. The cookies were lopsided, some burnt at the edges, but they tasted like forgiveness. We ate in silence at first, the crickets singing in the hydrangeas that had finally bloomed again. "I've been seeing a therapist," she said eventually, "about the fire, about the Millers, about everything." I nodded. "Good. She says memories are tricky, especially from when you're little. But some things—" She touched the hollow of her throat, where the necklace used to hang. "Some things you feel in your bones." I reached into my pocket, pulled out the velvet box, opened it. The bracelet glinted in the porch light. "I want you to have this. For real, this time." She took it, eyes wide. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." She fastened it around her wrist, the silver catching the light like a star. "It fits," she whispered. We sat there until the stars came out, her head on my shoulder, my arm around her, like it had always belonged there. Richard watched from the window, a sad smile on his face. When he came out, he brought blankets. We wrapped them around our shoulders and talked, really talked, for the first time in months. Daniel came home the next weekend. He stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, looking older than his 27 years. Anna was in the kitchen, helping me with dinner. When she saw him, she froze, spatula mid-air. "Hey," he said. "Hey," she echoed. The silence stretched, thick with everything unsaid. Then Daniel crossed the room, pulled her into a hug. Not romantic, not like before, but fierce and brotherly. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair, "for shutting you out." She clung to him, tears soaking his shirt. "I'm sorry, too." Richard and I watched from the doorway, our hands finding each other, without thinking. When they pulled apart, Daniel looked at me. "Mom?" The word broke something open in my chest. I opened my arms, and he came into them, all 6 feet of him, folding down like he was 6 years old again. I held my children, both of them, and for the first time in 25 years, I didn't feel like I was drowning. Summer came. We didn't fix everything. Some cracks don't mend, they just become part of the foundation. Daniel moved back home, took the basement room, Anna kept her apartment, but spent weekends with us, her laughter filling corners that had been silent too long. Richard started golfing again, but he came home earlier, kissed me on the cheek like he used to when we were newlyweds. I gardened, baked, cried in the shower when no one was looking. One Sunday in July, we drove to the lake. The willow tree had grown thicker, its branches trailing in the water like green curtains. We spread a blanket, unpacked sandwiches and lemonade. Daniel skipped stones. Anna read aloud from a children's book she was reviewing for school. Richard napped in the shade. I watched them, my family, scarred but whole, and felt something settle in my chest, like a bird finally coming home to roost. Anna looked up from her book. "Mom," she said, testing the word. "Race you to the water." I laughed, the sound startling a heron into flight. We ran, barefoot and breathless, splashing into the shallows like children. Daniel followed, tackling us both into the waves. Richard woke up, grumbling, but joined us, his shirt soaked through. We floated on our backs, the sun warm on our faces, the water cool around us. That night, I sat on the porch again, the bracelet box empty now. The stars were bright, the air thick with honeysuckle. Anna came out, wrapped in one of my old cardigans. "I got the DNA results framed," she said, "for the classroom, under family tree." I smiled. "The kids will love it." She sat beside me, our shoulders touching. "I used to dream about a woman singing," she said softly. "You are my sunshine. I thought it was made up, but it was you." I took her hand. "I never stopped singing it, even when I couldn't hold you." We sat in silence, the kind that doesn't need filling. Somewhere inside, Daniel was laughing at a movie. Richard's snores rumbling through the walls. The house was full again, not perfect, but full. I looked out at the garden, the roses glowing in the moonlight. The past was still there, buried deep, but it didn't own me anymore. I had my daughter's hand in mine, my son's laughter in my ears, my husband's steady presence beside me. I had redemption, hard-won and fragile, but real. The clock struck midnight. A new day, a new beginning. I whispered into the night, to the stars, to the girl I'd lost and found. If only I had heard you call me that sooner, Grace. But I heard it now, and it was enough. Did you like my story? What city are you from? See me in the comments. If you like it, support me with super thanks so I can continue telling stories like this. Thank you so much for your amazing support. I look forward to your comments. On screen, you will see 2 new real-life stories that I highly recommend. There are many more stories on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next story. With all love and respect.